Greetings. Uh, how you are doing this afternoon? Today is Monday. There is a lot of questions that I will be asking, especially the African Command Center, and it is quite amazing. You all know that United States has been playing a key role, especially when it comes to Africa in general, or Africa in particular. And but there is a lot of questions that we ask United States. Today I am going to be talking about the Africom. The Africom is the US-based command center, um, and the commander of the US Africom in 2018 in an issue called the posture statement. So I'm going to be dwell on that posture statement about U.S. Command. But however, I want to thank all of you that are tuning in again. My name is Funton Daniel. I will be speaking here from the great state of Texas, here in the United States. And I want to thank those viewers in and around the world. If you are in Ground Zero, thank you for tuning in. If you are in La Republique, thank you for tuning in. If you are in a neighboring country, La Republique de Cameroon, thank you for tuning in. And remember that I'm broadcast live on my Facebook and my YouTube. And on my YouTube is called Transparency Media International. And when you are there, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share, and make sure you keep the informations moving. That is the most important things that you can do. And on my YouTube, my Twitter account, I also on Twitter account. But I thank all of you that have been following me very closely. But the most important things is the ongoing genocide in Southern Cameroon territory called the Ambazonia. It is not a nation that is seeking to amalgamate. It's not a nation that is seeking to separate. It is not a nation. It is a nation that existed before. It's a nation that has a geographical boundary. It's a nation that the United States recognized that they're supposed to exist as people. But out of a suddenly, this nation is disappearing in the face of the planet, Earth. So that is why I am focused on the U.S. Command Center, especially the Africom. And I'm going to be reading the statement that the United States Department of Defense, the Africom, on African-related issues. And then this is the moment that the United States must show to the world community, to the Africans in particular, that they can build a trust and they can rely upon them. And so that is why I am bringing this greater attention, not only to the world community, but also to all of us in general, because this is what the United States Africom must be willing to come on the table and show the Africans that they are not just friends, they are more than the friend indeed. And because of this, and that the African look upon the United States to show that leadership. This is Fonton Daniel speaking today from the great state of Texas, here in the United States, on African Common, on the 2018 postural statement to the U.S. Congress. Let's see what is going on. Why is this imperative? Southern Cameroon, Article 1608 of the United Nations Charter. Article 1608 of the United Nations document. Article 1608 of the United Nations document 76B of the same document specified that the people of Southern Cameroon is a nation. But unfortunately, the Under Secretary General for the Secretary General for the United Nations, you remember he traveled one will expect that by the head of the United Nations boss traveling to La Republique, it will going to be a perfect relationship, to acknowledge that there is a problem, and that by coming to his office, he's going to show the world that he commands the leadership. But when he returned, this is him. This is him meeting the brutal dictatorship, Paul Biya regime. And when he returned, nothing has happened. And why the people of Southern Cameroon has continued to witness a continual massacre that is being perpetrated by La Republique du Cameroon. There is no legal document. There is no legal document that, give me a minute. There is no legal document that La Republique claim ownership of the people of Southern Cameroon. There is no legal document. It absolutely is a cohabiting relationship between the people of Southern Cameroon and the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroon. And let's look at, that is the US, that is the United Nations Secretary General. When he traveled and met this brutal dictatorship, one was expecting a significant differences upon his return to the United Nations headquarters. And as soon as he returned to the United Nations headquarters, there is absolutely zero silent. He is absolutely silent. Even the question, he even bound including foreign press to even have access to him, to question his legitimacy, to question his position on the people of Southern Cameroon. Remember that the same office to whom he is the leadership in 1961 voted overwhelmingly to recognize the people of Southern Cameroon as a people of distinctive sovereign nations. But unfortunately, when he arrived and meet this brutal and corrupted, is the fourth corrupted nation on this planet, La Republique du Cameroon. And as soon as each foreign dignitaries arrive, they immediately corrupt the system. And as soon as they arrive back and they have no language related to the ongoing murdering in Southern Cameroon as the people continue to bleed. Let's look. That is the person. That is the worst dictator. He has been in power for 37 years while I am still speaking. 37 years. He is now mentally deranged and absolutely incoherent. He is absolutely incoherent. But unfortunately, in a world of international community, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's him. When the former Undersecretary for African Affairs, Ms. Cohen, raised an alarm about what role the United States can play in the midst of this atrocity in Southern Cameroon. But unfortunately, pulling out military force doesn't solve the problems. Because in an era of dictatorship, pulling military doesn't solve the problems. It's taking action. That is what is really at this moment, at this time. United States Congress has written several documents. United States Senate has written several documents. State Department has written several documents. But unfortunately, in a dictatorship, they care less about the dictatorship. They care less about written documents. Because first, they don't even recognize their own document pertaining to them. Because if they had recognized the document pertaining to them, then Article 76, 1608, XV, and 76B would have immediately prompted them to immediately carry on a drastic action with ongoing crisis in Southern Cameroon. But unfortunately, it doesn't exist anywhere. And that is why the former Undersecretary for African Affairs raised an alarm which prompted his current successor, his current successor, he was over the media and he spoke about the ongoing crisis in Southern Cameroon. He was France 24. He spoke here in the United States. But as soon as he's arrived in the neighboring country, La Republic, and returned, his course of language changed drastically. And the problem, he doesn't longer talk about the issues. And it was amazing that he was instead congratulating Switzerland. Is that not deplorable that he's congratulating Switzerland for carrying on initiative? And Under Secretary for African Affairs is more than the President of Switzerland. And Under Secretary for African Affairs is more than the President of Switzerland in terms of power, in terms of classification, in terms of value. But unfortunately, that is what is going on. He is congratulating the Swiss government over what he believes is ongoing dialogue. Dialogue on what? With who? Is that terms of specify the terms of the dialogue? Of course not. We have our citizens within La Republique specified constitution. They have no legitimacy in whatsoever arrest and detain citizens of Southern Cameroon in La Republique du Cameroon, even with La Republique on legitimate document that specify their constitution. They have no legal authority to arrest and detain the people, the citizens of Southern Cameroon. But that is what is going on. Of course, let's look at the U.S. Defense Department, which all of us are being protected, even including the world community. Without the U.S. Department of Defense, the world would have corrupt. And it is the legal system that the U.S. Department of Defense frequently meet the U.S. Congress, specify their policy and what actions can be done in any crisis situations. But now, in the case of the Southern Cameroon, of course, U.S. have suspended all their military in La Republique. U.S. have withdrawn. U.S. have done this. But what about the military equipment that still exists in La Republique? And that is what they're using in Southern Cameroon and murdering innocent citizens of Southern Cameroon. They are still bleeding. They are still murdering going on. Can the U.S. Department of Defense do more? Let's look at what U.S. Department of Defense Command. The U.S. Department of Defense Command Center. In 2018, the posture statement to the U.S. Congress, the U.S. Marine Corps General Thomas Dewars, commander of the U.S. Africom, testified on March 6, 2018 before the House Armed Services Committee and before the Senate Armed Services Committee March 13, 2018. Part of the command is an annual postural statement to the U.S. Congress. That is the U.S. Department of Defense. The document and the resources, they need the vital objectives of the U.S. partnership nation achieved through a cooperative relationship with the U.S. African Command, play a supporting role for African leaders, telling us how important it is for the development of African solutions to African problems. The framework by which, through recognizing the importance of partnership, we turn foster during relationship. Of course, that is the United States Department of Defense in collaboration with Africom, with African nations. But this is the crisis situations. United States understand the fundamental importance of having U.S. Africom in Africa. But unfortunately, Southern Cameroon is a nation that United States recognized. United States in 1961 voted at the United Nations headquarters. 64 nations voted overwhelmingly, recognized the people of Southern Cameroon. But unfortunately, it is a reality that the United States look at things objectively and look at things beyond human reasoning. Of course, there is a bleeding that is going on in Southern Cameroon territory. and Africom. So Africom is just interested only when it becomes the nations. When the nation violates its own citizens and bleeding, what is the policy of the U.S. Africom when it comes to a nation violate its own citizens? Does the United States has a greater role in this? But that is a fortunate thing. In the current generation of Africans, I think the United States need to recognize that the older generation has no longer has a value, a fundamental value. We cannot just assume and fail in every aspect. Let's look at what is the bleeding that I'm talking about. Let's take a look at some of the bleeding case that is going on, that is carried on by the neighboring country like Republic of Cameroon. The U.S. ambassador is not someone else. U.S. ambassador absolutely denounced the ongoing atrocity that is being perpetrated by the Republic of Cameroon. I think it is important that the United States take a closer look and see what is exactly can the United States make a significant differences. Let's look. This is a bleeding that is going on in Southern Cameroon. This is a bleeding. It's constant. It's not something that just happened abruptly. That is the military of La République du Cameroon that is currently causing atrocity in Southern Cameroon. It's constant. It's a behavior that I believe that it could have prompted the United States Department of Defense making a significant differences. Showing that they care, showing that they have love, showing they can do something. It is deplorable at this moment that while I'm still speaking here, it's absolutely deplorable. This just happened. I mean, there are families that live here in the United States and elsewhere in Europe. Of course, these citizens are from Southern Cameroon. They do contributing enormously for the economy of these great nations. And that is why they are proud to be citizens of these amazing and most wonderful nations. But each time when they leave their various jobs and then they return home, and what they look upon is the bleeding that is occurring in their home territory. I think they are not exception that United States Department of Defense can't do anything. United States takes 24 hours for the U.S. Department of Defense to make a significant differences. 24 hours. If U.S. Department of Defense, 24 hours, they can make a significant differences to the life of the citizens of Southern Cameroon. I think it's time the U.S. Department of Defense take a closer look whether what kind of relationship does they have? They think that being an African, this is at a time of crisis, that they look upon the United States for leadership. In a time of crisis, they look upon the United States. But unfortunately, look, some of this may be very offensive to viewers, but take a look. This is what is happening constantly in Southern Cameroon territory. La République has no legal authority in whatsoever in Southern Cameroon. We know the U.S. Congress has passed a resolutions 358 asking to live under a federal structure. But of course, we have lived with La République within the past 56 years. and within the past 56 years has a rubbish relationship. Instead, we are being deprived of our basic fundamental rights and privileges, and we continue to uproot our resources for the interest of the French-speaking. And yet, do we have to live more for another 56 years to draw attention for the international community to take a closer look? No, the people of Southern Cameroon have the right and privilege to live on their own. They don't have to live with La Republic in whatsoever. They don't. They don't have to. They don't have to live with La Republic. They have the right and privilege, like any other nations, to separate. If we can recognize that once someone gets married to a wife, they have the right to separate. When they deem that the marriage is inadmissible and that cannot function in any whatsoever, they should have the privilege to separate. And that is a fundamental right and privilege, and should not be forced into a cohesion. This is more bleeding.
Today is the 11th of August 2019. This is another civil alive.
This is the lifestyle you find in Southern Cameroon. Continue bleeding, continue murder, and indiscriminately. It's absolutely deplorable in the state of Southern Cameroon and unimaginable. I think the world has to do some significant differences. I am very proud to be